That morning in Ouagadougou, the air was still. It was heavy with the dry season's heat. But there was something more, something quiet and unsaid, hanging in the air. Inside the president's part of the simple but proud palace, Captain IBRAHIM TRAORÉ was at his desk. He was reading a letter sealed with gold. This letter wasn't from a normal government office in Nigeria. It came from the Nigerian military. This special envelope was brought by a soldier, a military messenger. There were no assistants around, no talking, just a deep quiet, like the letter itself was full of tension. Inside a short, handwritten note. It was direct and personal. My brother, in our shared African dream, let's speak honestly. It's time for Africa to talk with one strong voice. Come to Abuja. No reporters, no fancy welcomes, just important business. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President of Nigeria. Traore held the note for a long while. It sounded like an offer of peace, but something felt off. He'd received letters like this before, from European officials who smiled too sweetly, and from African leaders who pretended to want unity, but secretly served foreign powers. The words were too smooth, the timing too quick. Just 2 days before, there were whispers that ECOWAS, a group of West African countries, was about to make a new rule. This rule would try to force Mali, Guinea, Niger, and Burkina Faso to rejoin their group or face tough punishments. Tinubu had said publicly this wasn't true. Now he wanted a private meeting. Traore's eyes narrowed. He looked at the letter again and turned it over. On the back corner, a tiny ink mark, 2 lines, then a cross. It was a hidden message, not for him to see, but a warning he should see. Someone in Tinubu's team had leaked it. Someone was trying to warn him. 3 days later, pretending as a normal diplomatic trip, Captain Traore got on a government plane to Nigeria. The official reason was a secret talk about safety and business in the region. The real reason, it was a test, not of friendship, but of loyalty. He wasn't alone. 2 of his best intelligence officers, Lieutenant Karim Zongo and Commander Mariama Kita, went with him. They had no weapons, but they carried hidden, high-tech listening devices in their briefcases. If Tinubu was setting a trap, they would turn the tables and record the trapper. When they landed in Abuja, it was very quiet. No cameras, no reporters. Just a dark car waiting near the runway. An advisor came up to them. "Welcome, President Traore. President Tinubu will see you soon. We'll take you straight to the secure room." There were no friendly greetings, no flags, no handshakes. The silence was loud and heavy. The west wing of Aso Rock, Nigeria's presidential complex, was called the Strategic Affairs Wing. No reporter had ever been inside. The room they took Traore to had no windows. It was soundproof and kept at a cool 20 degrees Celsius. There were hidden cameras in the ceiling and microphones behind the walls. Everything in that room was there for more than one reason. They led Traore into the room first, then left him alone. 10 minutes went by. No one came in. Then, the door opened. Tinubu walked in, all by himself. He smiled, but his eyes didn't look friendly. "Captain," he said, holding out his hand. "Thank you for coming." Traore didn't shake his hand. He just nodded once. Tinubu didn't react. He walked to the far end of a shiny table and sat down. There were no papers, no deals laid out, just one digital tablet in the middle of the table. "Before we start," Tinubu said, "I want to show you something." He touched the tablet. A screen lit up. It showed secret ECOWAS plans, new punishments, and maps of Wagner, a Russian military group soldiers, in Mali. "These are the serious things we're dealing with," Tinubu said. "Europe is watching us. America is changing its plans. Russia is moving around. We can't afford to be divided. You know this." Traore stayed silent. "But you," Tinubu leaned in, his voice becoming sharp. "You've become a symbol, and symbols need to be controlled." The offer appeared on the tablet. Tinubu pushed it towards Traore. "Sign this deal. Rejoin ECOWAS. Do military exercises with us. Share information. Publicly say no to Wagner. If you do, Nigeria will help Burkina Faso with its energy projects." Traore's eyes didn't blink. "And if I say no?" he asked quietly. "Then history will say you were the one who broke African unity." Then came the big move. Tinubu looked at the door and nodded. It opened. 2 officials came in with a leather briefcase. They put it on the table and stepped back. "Inside," Tinubu said, "is a signed letter from France. They support this deal and are offering secret money to help your government." "This isn't unity," Traore said softly. "This is giving in, pretending it's a smart plan." Tinubu's smile came back. "Sometimes giving in is how you survive." Traore leaned back in his chair. "Before I sign anything," he said, "let me offer you something." He reached into his coat and took out a small, round, blinking device. It was a signal jammer. The cameras in the ceiling flickered and went dark. The microphones in the walls went dead. Then, Traore took out his own tablet from his briefcase. He tapped the screen. "This is a recording of our entire meeting," he said. "Every word from the moment I arrived. Your invitation, the secret papers, the bribe, it's all recorded from my side." Tinubu's jaw clenched. "Impossible! Your security team was caught 72 hours ago. The assistant who gave me the letter in Ouagadougou. He works for me now." Tinubu stood up. "You wouldn't dare leak this." "I don't need to leak it," Traore said, standing up to face him. "I just need you to know that I could." And then, he walked out. As Traore walked into the hallway, the guards outside tensed up. They didn't know what had just happened in that room, but the look in Traore's eyes told them enough. The meeting had not gone the way Tinubu planned. Traore walked past them without saying a word, with Lieutenant Zongo and Commander Kita by his side. "We're clear," Kita whispered. "They didn't check us for bugs on the way out." "Upload the recording," Traore told her. "Use a secret, delayed channel. I want 3 copies in 3 different countries by tonight." They got into the diplomatic car. The cars moved quietly, no sirens, no reporters. But the story was already starting to spread. Back inside Aso Rock, Tinubu's top advisors were arguing behind closed doors. The trap hadn't just failed. It had been turned around, exposed, and recorded. That night in Abuja, a high-ranking Nigerian intelligence officer made a phone call he wasn't supposed to. He called his cousin in Paris, and the cousin leaked everything. By the next morning, the secret, silent video footage of the meeting appeared on a hidden Telegram channel used by African military insiders. Within 2 hours, the video was on X, what used to be Twitter, shared by an activist with the message, "Burkina Faso doesn't bow." Traore had walked in alone and walked out strong and unbroken. The clip went viral. People talked about it, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't said. The video showed Traore sitting still and calm while Tinubu gestured, leaned in, and pushed a screen towards him. Then, suddenly, the cameras went black. The video ended and everyone wondered, what did Traore do next? In Lagos, a famous radio host started his show sounding unsure. "This is not how you build unity," he said. "We shouldn't be setting traps. We should be building bridges." People on Nigerian Twitter exploded. Some defended Tinubu, saying it was just political drama. Others strongly criticized him for betraying African togetherness. In northern Nigeria, university students held a quiet protest. They wore both Nigerian and Burkina Faso flags, with tape over their mouths. One of their signs read, "If Traore was trapped, then our democracy is trapped too." Inside the Nigerian Senate, they called an emergency private meeting. What started as a secret meeting had become a huge embarrassment for the region. In Ouagadougou, the people cheered loudly. The video made them feel proud and, more importantly, understood. For months, foreign reporters had called Traore reckless and alone, a young rebel. But now the world saw something different. A calm man under pressure, a man who was offered power but refused it, a leader who had been tested and had won. Across the city, new murals were painted overnight. One showed Traore at a table with a shadowy figure, cameras watching from above, wires hidden in the walls, and a bright light shining from the Burkina Faso flag behind his head. A local poet stood in the market and shouted one line. They tried to tie up the lion, but they forgot it was born with fire in its breath. 3 days after coming home, Traore said nothing official. He didn't mention Tinubu, held no press conference, and made no video statement. Instead, he sent a handwritten letter, sealed and delivered by hand, to Tinubu's office. No one knew what it said. But a few hours later, one of Tinubu's presidential advisors quit. The next day, an ECOWAS meeting planned in Bamako was cancelled, with no new date. A week later, France quietly took back its public request for Burkina Faso to reopen trade. The silence was louder than any speech. 12 days after the first video leaked, another one appeared. This time, it had the full audio. It wasn't from Burkina Faso. It came from inside Nigeria. Someone working in the government's communications office, a whistleblower, secretly uploaded the full recording of the meeting with a note. "Let the whole continent hear this." Tinubu's voice was clear. The offer was clear. And the line that would be repeated millions of times across Africa and by Africans around the world was clear. Sometimes submission is survival. And then, Traore's answer, then survival must no longer be the goal. Dignity must be. The continent stopped and listened. Even people who didn't like Traore's rise to power had to admit he spoke with strong belief. It wasn't just a political game. It was a stand for what was right. In Ghana, student groups wrote open letters supporting Burkina Faso. In South Africa, community groups held online discussions, talking about every word of the leaked recording. In Kenya, a filmmaker started collecting reactions from around the world for a documentary called The Man Who Refused. But the biggest reaction was in Nigeria. At the University of Ibadan, political science students put on a play, acting out the secret meeting. They called it Silence in the Strategy Room. In the last scene, Traore stood up without a word and walked out, while Tinubu stood frozen, a fading spotlight on him. The audience stood in silence for 2 minutes. Behind the scenes in Nigeria, the consequences were serious. 2 top intelligence officers were moved to different jobs. A special advisor to the president was quietly sent to London for health reasons. And a secret report to the National Assembly suggested that any more private dealings with Captain Traore should be stopped. At ECOWAS, the next big meeting was postponed again. Secretly, many leaders started calling Traore not as a young rebel, but as an equal. Even the African Union, which hadn't officially talked to him since the coup, sent a quiet message through Ethiopia's ambassador. Maybe it's time to listen, not to lecture. Weeks later, Traore gave only one interview to a journalist from Burkina Faso known for being independent and smart. They sat in a simple office. No fancy palace, no military uniforms, just 2 chairs and 2 cups of tea. The journalist asked, "Why didn't you expose the trap yourself? Why did you let the video speak for you?" Traore looked straight at the camera, paused, and then said, "Because sometimes, if you talk too soon, people just stick to their wrong ideas. But if you let silence show the truth, even your enemies start to question what they've done." Traore looked straight at the camera, paused, and then said, "Because sometimes, if you talk too soon, people just stick to their wrong ideas. But if you let silence show the truth, even your enemies start to question what they've done." The video got millions of views in just 72 hours. The last line, repeated all over the continent, was, "Africa is not poor, it is poisoned by silence and healed by those who dare to break it." Months went by. Traore kept leading his country, but something was different. He wasn't just a rebel leader anymore. He had become a symbol of African pride and self-respect, not because of war or loud speeches, but because he had walked into a room meant to shame him, and he had refused to bow down. Because when he had to choose between power and dignity, he chose dignity and let the world see the rest. And so Africa remembered. Not the cameras, not the trap, not even the papers on the table. What Africa remembered was the silence. That moment when one man stood up, pushed nothing, threatened no one, and simply walked out. And in that silence, something powerful shifted. Power changed hands, not by votes, not by guns, but by strong belief, by calm presence, and by a truth so clear it didn't need to be shouted, yet so loud it couldn't be forgotten.